Samantha here. Thank you so much for joining me for this Aqua Q-Weft webinar. I am so excited to be here. I have my beautiful model and fellow educator, Winona. She will be our model for our Q-Weft webinar today. But before we dive in, I really want to make sure that we know exactly what a Q-Weft is. So I'm going to be diving deep into what is the Q-Weft, who is ideal for an Aqua Q-Weft. I'm going to compare and contrast the Aqua Q-Weft with our Hand Tied Weft, Machine Weft, how we can intermix all of the things, and then I will be doing a live demo on Winona's hair today with the Aqua Q-Weft. So let's have at it. Okay, so the Aqua Q-Weft. If you've not saw our Q-Weft yet, this is what it looks like. So the Aqua Q-Weft is 35 inches wide. 35 inches wide, yes, you heard me correctly. It is one 35-inch continuous piece of a machine weft. So the Aqua Q-Weft is not a hand-tied weft. It's not handmade. The weft itself is actually machine-made, but it's very, very thin and fine like a hand-tied weft. So if you're looking really closely, you can see the top of the weft is very thin, even thinner than a hand-tied weft. So I'm actually going to compare the two. I have a hand-tied weft here. And if you look at the two very close side by side, let me line this up. The hand-tied weft, you absolutely can see each individual hair that has been tied to the weft. Okay, the machine weft, or on the top, which is our Q-Weft, machine-made weft, is much more dense than a hand-tied weft, but even thinner and finer than the hand-tied weft. So the Aqua Q-Weft is on the top and the hand-tied weft is underneath on the bottom. Okay, some benefits of the Aqua Q-Weft. If you're looking closely, you can see there's no mustache on the Q-Weft. No mustache whatsoever, which is the return. The actual real term of a mustache is the return. So there's no return or mustache whatsoever on the weft itself. Okay? Again, it's very thin and flexible, and the number one best benefit of the Aqua Q-Weft is you can cut it. Yes, you can cut the Aqua Q-Weft. So I'm just going to take a piece here, cut the end off. You will lose a few pieces at the cut point, but I can play tug of war with this weft, and it's not going anywhere. It is very, very strong and sturdy. You can see it's not going to unravel like a traditional hand-tied weft. So it's definitely the best of both worlds between a machine weft, which I have here, the Aqua Machine Weft. It's very strong and durable like the machine weft, but it's thin and flat laying like the hand-tied weft. So picture best parts of the machine weft and the best parts of a hand-tied weft, mix them together, that's the Aqua Q-Weft. Cool. Okay, so we are going to be installing the Aqua Q-Weft in Winona's hair today. And as I do that, I will absolutely discuss just some benefits, extra benefits of the Q-Weft, how we're going to cut and stack the Q-Weft into her hair, and then can I mix and match wefts together? Okay, we'll discuss all of those things about the Q-Weft as we're applying. So let's go ahead and start our application. Okay, so now that we have her already beaded and ready to go, we're going to now prep and lay our Q-Weft for the application. So we went ahead and beaded all the way around this row, okay? And like I said, we're using Q-Weft, so it's one continuous 35-inch piece. We need to cut the weft to the width of the section that I just beaded. So what we're gonna do is I'll start on the end of the Q-Weft and loosely measure the entire way around. The biggest challenge I see stylists do is when they're measuring the entire way around with the Q-Weft or even with machine weft, any cuttable weft, is they hold the weft too high at the scalp and then they cut to the width, and once you drop and sag that weft down where it actually is going to live in this row, it shrinks and they don't have enough on the ends. So please be sure to line the end of the Q-Weft up just past your first bead. Allow yourself a little excess. So just past your first bead, and then make sure the band or the top of the actual weft is lined up with the tops of the beads, so it's slightly dropped. It's not all the way up at the hairline, it's slightly dropped. And all the way around to the very other end of our first bead. Then I give myself a little bit more excess. So this is how wide this first row is. I'm going to go ahead and cut. And then I know I want 2 identical wefts. Okay, so I'm going to match that up and cut that again. So now I have 2 stacked that are exactly the same, and I will place those in that row. Now, my third and or fourth weft, you're asking how many can I stack in one row? Just like the hand-tied weft, you could stack up to 4 wefts in this one row, okay? Today, we're only going to stack 3, only because the hand-tied weft is 11-inch piece that's already pre-cut and ready to go, right? So when we're using a hand-tied weft, I have to layer and stack them into place. With the Qweft, they're much more dense per square footage. So me stacking these 2 Qwefts in her one row, and then a smaller Qweft in the back for density, this one pack of Qweft is the same density as one pack of hand-tied weft, okay? So hand-tied weft, it would take 4 full hand-tied wefts in this one row to create the same density as what I'm using with 1 pack of Qweft. So what I'm going to do is I have these 2 Qweft pieces that will live end to end all the way around her beads, and I'm going to take my smaller piece and just use that in the center back to allow for extra density in the back and a little less density on the sides. So let me lay the top 2 down here, and I'm going to start stacking our first weft into place. Now you're probably saying, why can I not just take the 2 and stack them in place? You can. You absolutely can. I just like to do them one at a time to ensure they're lined up perfectly and I don't have any beveling, bubbling, or any excess. So I'm going to start right here in the front, clip that into place right on that front bead, and then use my clips just to hold the rest in place. So notice I'm keeping everything nice and flat. I don't have any buckling of the weft. Everything nice and flat. Spin. I'll end right on that front bead. So just making sure everything's even. I don't have any excess in the front. I'll grab my second weft. I'm going to lay it right over top of my first. So this is where you absolutely could customize these colors, right? I could have 1 layer of Qweft. Now the color we're using is our 4/12 balayage. I could now layer a different color directly over top, right? I could take our 4/12 duotone, which is so beautiful, and that will create more of a highlight, low light dimension in with my balayage. Or I could just take and place color number 12 or just color number 4 by itself. You could stack and layer as many custom colors in there as you choose, just like you can with a hand-tied weft. I'm going to take my second weft, stack directly over my first, lift my clips, and clip these into place. So again, I absolutely could have lined these up and stacked them at the same time. I just find the tension is not quite as even if you're doing them both at the same time. You tend to have one that slides down and they're not even. So just like the hand-tied weft, I like to do them one at a time. Spin. I'm going to stagger them just the slightest bit. So like I said, I just like to go one at a time to make them nice and flat. Now you'll notice the material on the top of the Q-Weft is a little bit more slippery than what a hand-tied weft is. Okay, the hand-tied weft has more grip to it because there's hair and thread on the top of the weft. Once you play around with your Q-Weft, the Q-Weft is a little bit more slippery. So they much more easy to slide if everything is not clipped neatly into place. So I'm just staggering my Q-Weft slightly in my second layer than my first. Okay, then I'm going to take my third layer, my last piece of Q-Weft. Again, I could continue to stack 3 and 4 layers to match 1 and 2. Absolutely. If you truly need a nice dense layer, we absolutely can. Now we are just wearing 1 row of Q-Weft for density. We're not wearing Q-Weft for added length and fullness. We'll talk as we begin to sew how many packs of Q-Weft you need to complete a full head. But we are just adding Q-Weft in just for density purposes. So she'll be wearing 1 full pack of Q-Weft, 18 inches, which is 60 grams of hair in this 1 row. So I do not feel the need to open a new pack of Q-Weft and add in to create more density because 60 grams of hair in 1 row is plenty for her. So this is my leftover piece, okay? So she's wearing 2 full rows that are even, and then I have a leftover piece here. Okay, so 35-inch wide, 60 grams is distributed into these 3 rows. So I'm going to place my last piece right in the center back. So now I have 3 layers and max density in her nape area and in the back where she is the most dense. And it will be a little bit more fine on the sides with my 2 layers where your hair naturally is finer. So just lift my clips and place this in my back. I like to then take my clips and put them more vertical so I know where they end. And it keeps it nice and tight. Okay, so you can see 3 layers, just how much density is here in the back. And then on the sides, we'll lay a little bit more flat with our 2 layers. But again, cannot stress this enough, you can lay up to 4 layers of Q-Weft in this 1 row. Okay, you absolutely, if someone has much more dense hair, or if you truly are adding length and you're really needing to add that extra density in your length application, you can layer up to those 4 layers in your 1 row. You will just need another pack to then complete your next row. Cool? All right. Now let's start sewing it all together. I'm using dark brown thread and I'm using our cotton thread. So I'm right-handed. I'm going to start my application on the left side just to make sure I don't overlap my work as I sew. Okay, so as I start to sew this, we're going to talk more about the Q-Weft and dive deeper into who would be a benefit for Q-Weft and how do I intermix the systems together. So first I'll get started on my application. I'm going to start on bead 3. And you'll really be able to see once I start my knots here, just how thin the weft truly is. It is so flat, guys. I cannot stress this enough. It is so flat. Steal this Okay, so let's start. Who is a benefit for Qweft? Who can wear Qweft? Anyone. Anyone can absolutely wear a Qweft. If they can wear a hand-tied weft or a machine weft, if they're a candidate for either one of those, they absolutely can wear a Qweft. Qweft, again, is going to be denser than a hand-tied weft, but more flat-laying than a hand-tied weft. Okay? And it's going to be strong and durable like a machine weft. So, who's watching and you have a guest who struggles with their hand-tied weft because of improper maintenance at home? I know you're watching this and you're like, oh yeah, girl. Oh yes, I have the problem child. She's probably on my book this week. She comes in with her hair, her hand-tied weft hair. Maybe it's tangled, matted because of improper brushing, but maybe it is looping at the top of the weft because she's taking her brush and brushing straight over top of the weft. Okay, who's with me? Who has a guest who destroys their hand-tied weft? And if you're not sure what that looks like, thank goodness your guests truly do take care of their hair. But with a hand-tied weft, because every individual strand of hair is hand knotted onto that thread, the hair can loop and pull up at the weft. And unfortunately, once that starts to happen, the weft has been destroyed. There's no way to fix it. Okay, so if the guest is not maintaining her hair properly at home, not brushing properly, maybe she is leaving too much moisture in her weft. Okay, who has a guest who does not blow dry well, and there's so much moisture left in her weft, the weft starts to swell. Okay, the weft itself, the hand-tied weft, and the hair starts shedding off of the weft. Okay, if you did not know that could happen, it absolutely can. So if there's too much moisture left on their hand-tied weft consistently, the weft will swell, the hair will start to unloop, causing spacing and gapping in the weft, and it will shed. Okay, so maybe you have a guest that is your challenge. If you have any challenges with those guests, the Qweft is definitely the best solution. Okay, the Qweft is going to be just as flat and thin as a hand-tied weft, even thinner, and you're not going to have those same challenges that you do with a hand-tied weft. Okay, like I said, it's going to be much more durable like a machine weft is, but way more flat laying like a hand-tied weft. So this will definitely be your solution. Okay, next difference of a Qweft. So if you guys can see as I'm sewing here, the band on this Qweft, the material band here, okay, it is a man-made like synthetic material. So with that being said, it's not thread, it's not porous. So a hand-tied weft and Aqua's machine weft, the weft itself is made up of thread. Okay, it's sewn together either by hand or by a machine, but it is made up of thread. And we know that that thread can be colored, right? If you custom color your weft, which, again, I'm going to specify this. If you choose to custom color your weft, it voids any warranty. At Aqua, we don't recommend to color the hair. I'm a hairstylist, I get it. We're going to do it. However, if you do alter the hair in any way, it does void any warranty on the hair, so do it at your own risk. However, if you decide to custom color your hand-tied weft, the weft itself will hold color. So let's say I start with color 60A and I decide to root tap the top of my 60A hand-tied or machine weft. Okay, you're not going to have a blonde weft at the top with dark hair. You're going to have the band itself, the weft itself will color, right? It will absorb color. A Qweft will not absorb color. And this is not just us at Aqua. Any weft like our Qweft, there's many, many terms that brands use for their weft like our Qweft. The weft itself will not color, okay? Meaning, if I started this Qweft as color number 60 and I rooted the top, right? I rooted the top down. This band or this weft itself here will always be blonde. No matter what I do, it will always be blonde, okay? So with that being said, please be sure when you are custom choosing colors for your guest, when you're color matching, you're choosing one that has a darker root if you need it. Okay, it's the worst thing if you put this in your guest's hair and you just colored the top, like rooted it down, and you realized, oh crap, the top is still blonde. Okay, you're going to have a nice little thin stripe the entire way across your guest's hair. So don't do that to them, please. Make sure that we are ordering something that's already rooted, and if you need to deepen the root, that's totally fine, but order something that is already rooted, so this way you are not giving them a hot blonde band. Cool, so we're making our way to the back here. You can see I'm just starting my lock knots where I have 3 Q-Weft stacked. So you can start to see a little more density here. So I just did my first lock knot where I have 3 Q-Weft stacked. I'm actually going to put a loop knot in between the two just to tack to make sure that those 3 stay in place. You can see I have 3 stacked here. Look how thin and fine that is. 1, 2, 3. Super flat laying to her scalp. Okay, next question. Can I intermix 2 types of wefts into the guest's hair? Absolutely. Why would I want to do that? Why would I maybe use machine weft and Q-Weft in the same head? Let's say my guest is very, very dense and I'm adding length. Okay, that would be a scenario. If I have a guest who has shoulder length, very, very thick, dense hair, and I'm adding length, I may choose machine weft because it has the max density. Okay, I may choose machine weft because I really need to go in and add a lot of density into her hair, and I don't want to use maybe 3 or 4 packs of Q-Weft or hand tied weft. So I choose machine weft, but I want to add in a different color placement. But I want to be sure that the guest, maybe she is hard on her hair and she's not the best brusher. I want to be sure her hair does not come undone or unraveled in any way. So I could use machine weft in one row and Q-Weft in another row. Okay, your guest is going to maintain them the exact same way. Or I could deconstruct a layer off of my machine weft and replace it with a layer of Q-Weft for color purposes. So if I would like to layer 4/12 balayage with 4/12 duotone, I can remove a layer of my machine weft and replace it with a layer of Q-Weft. It's going to sit seamlessly on that weft. It's going to actually be thinner and finer than a full machine weft, and I don't have to worry about that potential unraveling. Okay. You can do the same thing with your hand tied weft. So let's say you have guests already wearing hand tied weft. Who has guests wearing hand tied weft? Most of us, right? Most of your guests are going to be wearing hand tied weft already. How do I transition them over, and why would I transition them over to Q-Weft? Okay. If your guest has been wearing hand tied weft for a long time, she loves it, she maintains it properly, there's no issues, there's no reason to change. There's no reason to switch over whatsoever. Okay. If your guest loves her hand tied weft, she's never had any challenges, keep using it. It is so amazing. I have most of my guests still wearing hand tied weft, and they will continue, right? However, let's say your guest does have some challenges. Maybe she, middle of her wear, she has some looping in the back where she struggles to pull her hair up and it gets caught and she's not brushing it properly, okay? And you realize I need to swap over maybe one of her wefts, right? Maybe you need to replace one weft in the layer. She's wearing 2 rows. There's 4 layers in each row, and you realize, oh crap, one of these hand-tied weft need replaced. Go ahead and replace it with a Q-Weft. It's going to lay just as seamless and flat in there. Okay, it's going to lay just as flat, but this way you can test out how she does with the Q-Weft. Okay, or maybe your guest is ready for new hair and you're ready to swap out one row, and she's going to wear the other row for a little bit longer. Again, swap her out with Q-Weft. Okay, test out Q-Weft, see what she thinks. It's a great way just to transition and ease them into Qweft without fully committing to brand new hair. So we're coming around the other side here. I'm almost to where my 3 layers will drop into 2. That's my last few knots before I reach her 2 layers. And like I said, I like to do a loop knot just kind of in between my very last lock knot where an end of a weft meets. This will just make sure it gets tacked down this end. So if you see, this is where this 3rd Qweft ends. I like to do a knot right before the bead just to make sure nothing comes undone. So after this lock knot's in place, we're back to her 2 bottom layers of Qweft. I actually am going to put 1 more loop knot right after the bead to tack the very corner of that Qweft down. I just like to be sure that there's no way this guest can pick at any edges of the weft. So if you look really close here, I did a lock on this bead, a loop in between the 2, a lock knot on this bead, and then a loop in between these 2. So you cannot see where this top layer of weft ends and the next one starts. Nice and flat. And I'll just continue all the way to the front to finish off this section. But again, just you can see how flat this is. Okay, so like I mentioned, anyone can wear a Qweft. Anyone can wear the Qweft. Anyone who has fine hair, dense hair, as long as they're able to wear a weft, this will be the most flat laying, the most customizable weft on the market. Okay, hands down, the most flat laying and the most customizable weft they can find because it can be cut to width. So unlike the hand tied weft that you are only using those 11-inch pieces, okay, you're stuck at those 11 inches. Yes, we're gonna fold and stack and layer those into place. However, they cannot ever get any bigger, okay? The machine weft, again, very customizable because it's deconstructible down to those 3 individual layers. However, it's going to be much more dense and thick than our Qweft. So nothing's going to be this thin or this customizable like the Qweft will be. Okay. So I actually realize I have an extra bead over here. I shifted just a smidge, so we're going to take that guy out. I had a feeling I wanted to take it out. I'm just going to remove it. And the benefit of a Qweft is, see, I have this little extra flap. I just have the slightest little bit. Could I tack that down? Probably, but I don't need to. I'm just going to cut it off. So I'm going to cut off, this is probably an 1/8 of an inch piece of weft. I'm just going to cut it. We know with the hand tied weft, we couldn't do that. I would have to reconfigure that weft in order for it to lay nice and flat. With a Qweft, I just cut it off. I'm just going to tack this front corner down. Notice I'm putting my loop knots at a diagonal forward here just to make sure it's nice and flat. And this lays really flat to the scalp. So there's one, I'm going to do one more on the very, very corner just to make sure that this is super flat. So you notice I did my lock knot and then I did those loop knots. Look how flat that lays to her scalp. There's 2 layers there. And it is so extremely flat. Then I go back to bead 1, finish my lock knots, and work my way back to bead 3 on this side with my locks and loops, and we're going to be complete. one more loop and a lock. And her Qweft is in. So you can see it didn't take me any more time to apply the Qweft as it would have with the hand tied weft, machine weft. I actually think it was quicker than doing either one of those applications because I didn't have to worry about stacking and folding. I just cut it to the width that I need. So I'm going to take these clips out, cut from my needle, box knot it off. Add one more. Then I'll spin. Box knot. Do not forget to box knot off where you started. So I clipped up my tail when I started, box knot this off, and her row's complete. Okay. So you can see, look how much density that is. Okay, this one row, she is wearing one full pack of Qweft. Okay, one full pack. This is a lot of density, right? This is so much density to really give her almost double her density of hair. So we will be cutting it to her length, but just look at how dense that is. But also look at how flat it is to her scalp. Okay, it is laying so flat. If I can maybe turn her to the side, you can see just how flat and seamless that is laying. So I'm so excited for those of you to try out Qweft if you haven't already, and try out the Qweft in comparison to your hand-tied and machine weft and see which one you like best. Okay, let me take this down so you can see what it looks like in action. Obviously, we would need to style her hair and cut and blend her extensions. But look how flat that is in her hair. Awesome. Okay, so some final tips about the Qweft. Remember, it is completely customizable. So the Qweft can be cut to the width that you're looking for. It's one continuous 35-inch piece. It comes in 18 and 22 inches. The 18-inch pack has 60 grams of hair, and the 22-inch has 65 grams of hair per pack. So how much do I need to complete a full head? If your guest needs added length and density, you will need 2 to 3 packs of hair to complete a full head of Qweft. Okay, the weight is the same as the hand-tied weft. So if your guest wears 2 packs of hand-tied weft, she still will need 2 packs of Qweft. Okay, 2.5 packs of hand-tied weft, she will need 2.5 packs of the Qweft. Okay, but like I mentioned, the difference is it is more dense per square footage. So let's do some math for a second, right? The hand-tied weft, AQUA's hand-tied weft, is 4 11-inch pieces in the 18-inch packs. You with me? 4 pieces per pack, or 4 wefts per pack. They each are 11 inches wide, so you're getting 45 inches of weft, right? 45 inches of square footage. Okay, now let's say we are adding in Qweft. The Qweft is 35 inches, but still has the same 60 grams of hair. So it's more dense because instead of 45 inches wide at 60 grams, you have 35 inches wide at 60 grams. So it absolutely is going to appear to be more dense, but remember, it's not nearly as wide of the weft. So you really want to make sure that when we're stacking and laying the weft, you truly have the width of the weft that you need. So if you're used to doing, let's say, 3 or 4 full layers the entire way around the head in 44 inches, you're not going to have those quite 44 inches. So just be careful when you're ordering that you do order enough hair, okay? Awesome, so I'm so excited for you to try AQUA's new Q-Weft. When you do, I would love for you to tag me, tag us on Instagram, tag AQUA Extensions on Instagram with your Q-Weft, and then also tag me on Instagram. I would love to see your applications at Sharpie_J, SHARPI_J. There's no E. So I'm so excited for you to try out Aqua's new Q-Weft. Tag us. If you have any questions, please reach out to me on Instagram. I would love to answer all of your questions that you possibly have. And happy extensioning. I will see you guys soon.